The night's unexpected guest. Tina's fingers trembled as she rent the white sheet into strips to fashion a bandage for Enzo's deep-side wound in the dim twilight of the guest house. The only sounds in the room were the rhythmic drumming of rain against the glass and the man's heavy, stifled breathing as the wound was cleansed. Enzo winced when the disinfectant stung the cut, but he only whispered softly, "Sei molto coraggiosa, cara. You are very brave." Tina could feel the heat radiating from his body and that peculiar, raw strength that felt simultaneously terrifying and comforting. As Tina finished tying the bandage, Enzo unexpectedly caught her wrist and pulled her toward him with gentle but firm resolve. "Anima mia, my soul," he whispered, burying his face in the crook of Tina's neck, inhaling her scent deeply. "Thank you. You smell divine, like coming home. It reminds me of sunlight and peace, and the scorched sand of the beach." For a fleeting moment, the horrific world outside ceased to exist. There was only their interlocking gaze in the vibrating silence. Tina could no longer bear the tension and kissed the man. He tasted of metallic blood and bitter tobacco. Yet, to her, he was the only sanctuary left. "Ti proteggerò sempre, I will always protect you," Enzo promised, and under the weight of his words, the walls of the room finally stopped feeling like a cage. He returned her kiss fervently, pulling her close and stroking her back. I hope you're enjoying our new story. Please follow us and subscribe to our channel so we can keep bringing you more thrills to chase away those boring moments. Drop a like and tell us in the comments, which is your favorite city? In the cramped guest house room, the air slowly cooled, and the city noises filtering in from outside drifted into silence. Tina had just begun to doze off in Enzo's arms when they were both startled by a tiny, soft rustle. Enzo's hand instinctively darted toward the weapon hidden under his pillow, but his movement froze halfway. In the moonlight, the silhouette of a lean, coal-black cat was outlined on the ledge of the broken window, its yellow eyes glowing in the dark like two small lanterns. The animal hopped confidently onto the floor and, with a soft meow, padded toward the man's bed. Enzo's body relaxed, and a deep, relieved sigh escaped his lips. He carefully pulled the girl back into the hollow of his shoulder and reached out with his other hand toward the creature climbing over the blanket. "How did you get here, Gato?" he asked in a whisper. The cat didn't hesitate, immediately nesting itself against Enzo's powerful chest, beginning a purr so loud and contented it filled the entire room. "Vedi cara, anche l'uomo hanno bisogno di amore," Enzo murmured into Tina's ear. "See, darling, even shadows need love." The man felt the vibration of the cat's body and the girl's steady breathing, and in that moment, all the horrors of the world seemed distant. The small animal's presence somehow banished the remaining fear lurking in the corners. Enzo's fingers gently stroked the soft fur. Then he wrapped his arm around Tina, and the strange little family of three finally drifted back into a deep, peaceful sleep in the heart of the Roman night. I hope you are enjoying our new story. Please subscribe to our channel so we can continue to thrill you with more tales and help you pass those boring moments with a chill. Drop a like on this video and let us know in the comments what you liked best about this particular story. We truly appreciate your support. Now let us continue. The power of the seal. When Tina woke, the cat was gone. Enzo was pulling on his trousers when he noticed her watching him intently. "Enzo, tell me about this cult. What do I even have to do with these people?" Enzo straightened up and stepped to the side table where the seal lay resting. Between Enzo's fingers, the red wax seal seemed to pulse in the weak light of the rising sun. The man's face tightened as his thumb traced the curves of the braided serpent and the etched lines of the weeping eye. "Il marchio della morte, the mark of death," he whispered in a voice so deep it sent shivers down Tina's spine. "This is the seal of the Lumber del Sang, the shadow of blood." "Sect," Enzo explained, meeting the girl's terrified gaze. "This order is not just a gathering of a few lunatics. It is a brotherhood that has been hiding underground for centuries, living in the shadows since the founding of Rome. They are said to be the city's dark reflection, believing that power can only be maintained through blood sacrifice. Tina stepped closer and cautiously touched the wax, but recoiled instantly. The seal was unnaturally warm. Enzo continued his explanation as the shadows dancing on the wall seemed to lengthen at his words. The braided serpent represents the eternal cycle, and the weeping eye represents the chosen victim, whose tears and blood they seek to redeem their own damned souls. Legend has it that every 100 years, they seek someone of pure lineage whose death will open a gate to darkness in the heart of Rome. The authorities dismiss them as mere rumors, but I know the truth because I have seen what they do to those who stand in their way. The man fell silent for a moment, then slipped the mark into his pocket. Non sei per caso, cara. You aren't here by chance, darling, he said grimly. Finding this seal in your wallet means you were marked long ago, and the man with the scarred face is merely the instrument of the ritual. That's why they watched you on the train. That's why they follow your every step. Your life is the key to their black magic. Tina felt evil radiating from the very walls, and the realization that she had become the target of an ancient prophecy weighed on her more heavily than any physical danger. In that moment, Enzo was not just her protector, but the only human being who understood the unfathomable horror from which there was no escape on the surface. The city of the dead. Dawn was still far off when they left the guest house and headed toward the dark alleys near the Vatican through the silent streets. Enzo knew the sect was hiding underground in the ancient passages, and only there could they end the cruel hunt against them. The black tomcat followed them like a silent shadow across the damp cobblestones. At the end of an alley, Enzo pried open a forgotten, rusty iron grate that led down into the infinite catacombs, into the moist depths. The air below was stifling, and thousands of human skulls stared at them from the walls with empty, dark sockets in the torchlight. Attenta al gradino. Watch the step, darling, Enzo warned as the flashlight performed a ghastly dance over the yellowed bones. Enzo, why did we have to come here? Tina asked in a trembling voice. It's freezing and I don't want to be here. Everything is so terrifying. How did these skulls get here? Do the police even know they exist? She grilled him, huddling closer. Enzo stopped and shone the light on the bone-white remains embedded in the wall. These remains were brought here during the Great Plague centuries ago. When the surface cemeteries overflowed, he explained softly. The authorities know about the upper levels, but this passage we are using isn't on any modern map. The police don't come down here because, according to city legend, this is Vatican territory and a cursed area where the law does not apply. Il Vaticano ignora questo posto. The Vatican ignores this place because it guards too many dark secrets from the past. Tina felt invisible, malevolent eyes watching their every move from the darkness, and the cold walls seemed to slowly close in around them in the suffocating silence. Let's turn back, she pleaded with Enzo, fighting back tears. Let's tell the police. Surely they can help us. Enzo only shook his head as the cat suddenly hissed, its fur bristling toward the dark tunnel ahead. From the distance, a deep, monotonous chanting drifted up from the depths, filling the girl's heart with icy dread. It sounded like a funeral dirge sung by 100 throats at once. Sento il loro male. I feel their evil, Enzo muttered, gripping his weapon tighter while his other hand clasped Tina's fingers so hard it almost hurt. Don't be afraid. Everything will be all right. I have a plan, the man promised, but the torchlight reflecting in his eyes betrayed that this plan might cost them their lives. Here, neither the police nor the law ruled. Only ancient blood and the darkness from which there is no return. The shadows moved on the walls, and the chanting grew louder as they approached the sect's secret altar. The sect's trap. In the deepest reaches of the catacombs, the air was no longer just stale. It was suffocatingly thick with the stench of sulfur and decay. They entered a massive, vaulted hall illuminated by torches, where the walls were covered not in ancient inscriptions, but in ritual symbols smeared with fresh red blood. They glistened wetly in the flickering light. The cat, its back arched, hissed into the gloom, and suddenly dozens of black-hooded figures emerged from the deep shadows behind the pillars. Like silent ghosts, they surrounded the trembling pair in the center of the room, only the fanatical eyes flashing beneath the hoods indicating they were flesh and blood men. In the center, on a dais, stood the scarred man, now raising an ornate, midnight black dagger crafted from obsidian for the bloody ritual. The blade swallowed the torchlight as if it were born of the darkness itself. Enzo stepped in front of Tina, shielding her with his wounded body from the approaching silent figures, even as he felt the pulse of hot blood soaking through his side. "Vieni a prendermi, maledetto. Come and get me, you cursed one." Enzo roared at the leader, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling, while he gave the girl's hand one last encouraging squeeze. At an invisible signal, the sect members moved toward them all at once, like long shadows creeping across the walls. The hall was suddenly filled with the sounds of mortal combat, the clatter of steel hitting flesh and guttural groans. Tina felt panic flooding her mind, but her survival instinct was stronger. She grabbed a heavy bronze candelabra from the floor to desperately aid her lover in this seemingly hopeless struggle. Her hand buckled under the weight, but when the first hooded figure reached for her, she struck with all her might. "Resta vicino a me. Stay close to me," Enzo shouted as he brought down the first attacker with a single brutal kick. He fought like an obsessed angel in the deepest pit of hell, every movement signaling to the darkness that they would only reach Tina over his dead body. The soot-choked smoke of the torches blurred their vision, and the dance of battle on the blood-soaked stones dragged them toward destiny with every passing second. The War of Shadows. The fight was chaotic and bloody on the slippery, damp floor of the hall as the torches were extinguished one by a rising draft that carried the scent of death. Enzo fought like a cornered, wounded beast, but the sheer physical numbers of the dark-hooded figures were slowly grinding down his remaining strength. Then, out of nowhere, an ear-splitting, wild hiss and a piercing feline shriek cut through the chanting. The black tomcat, who had faithfully followed them since the guest house, suddenly puffed out its fur to a massive size, its yellow eyes glowing with demonic light in the dark. "Guardate I Gaddy. Look at the cats." Enzo gasped as he noticed dozens of alley cats with glowing red eyes streaming out from the cracks in the walls and the depths of the burial chambers like a living black river. The army of cats, led by the main tomcat, threw themselves frenziedly upon the sect members, who were thrown into disarray by the unexpected assault. Claws raked into faces and teeth sank into ankles as the hall filled with a mixture of human screams and animal rage. Seeing the chaos, the scarred man made one last desperate lunge toward Tina with the obsidian dagger, but the girl was no longer the trembling victim who had sat on the train. With the heavy bronze rod Enzo had given her, she struck the killer's wrist with all her strength. With a distinct snap, the bone broke, and the dark-bladed weapon flew far into the bottomless gloom. Enzo seized the moment of distraction and, gathering all his rage, shoved the leader into the depths through an open burial chamber with one final charge. "Finita, mastro. It's over, monster," Enzo wheezed, as the remaining sect members, seeing their leaders fall and the cat's attack, scattered into the labyrinthine passages with frantic speed. The ancient foundations beneath the temple suddenly began to shudder from the noises of the world above, and massive stone blocks weighing tons crashed down from the ceiling in a suffocating cloud of dust. The lead tomcat gave them one final meow, pointing the way, before vanishing among the ruins. Enzo grabbed Tina's hand and began to run toward a distant, faint glimmer of light with the exhausted, trembling girl. Dawn in the Eternal City. The sunrise bathed St. Peter's Square in golden light when the two figures, limping and clinging to one another, stepped onto the surface from the dark maw of the catacombs. Their clothes were dusty, blood-stained, and torn, but the fire of reclaimed freedom burned in their eyes in the cool morning breeze. Enzo stopped in the center of the square, embraced by the massive colonnades, and looked silently at Tina for a long time as her face was caressed by the first warm rays of the sun. "Se la mia vita cara. You are my life, darling," Enzo said, his voice now silkier and clearer than at any time during the long and bloody night. As the city slowly began to stir, Tina finally told Enzo why she had come to Rome. She explained that she had come to visit her best friend, Julia, who was studying architecture at the local university and had been planning the trip for months. She had received the fateful wallet as a gift from her, bought from a market stall in the Trastevere district, never suspecting that the small object hid the mark of an ancient sect beneath its lining. Julia studied the structure of buildings, but she never would have guessed that such dark and living corridors stretched between the city's walls. Enzo wrapped his arms tightly around the girl and didn't let go, even when they hailed a taxi. He accompanied Tina all the way to her friend's apartment, where Julia listened, sobbing and in disbelief, to the incredible story of their escape as they tended to their injuries. After the joy of the reunion, Enzo turned to Tina, his gaze no longer reflecting the hunter, but a man in love. He took the girl's hand and led her out onto the balcony, from which, far beyond the banks of the Tiber, the roof terrace of a worn but friendly house was visible. "Look there, Cara," Enzo pointed into the distance. "I live there, above the rooftops, where the sun hits the city first and where the cats always get their milk. I want you to know that from now on, you aren't just a tourist in this city, and you never have to fear the shadows again." Rome had not become the city of death for them, but the place where two broken souls found each other in the deepest pits of darkness. "Andiamo a casa. Let's go home," Enzo whispered into the girl's ear, and Tina knew that home no longer meant a country, but this man. Hand in hand, they set off into the buzzing throng of the awakening city, and their story did not end with a train ride, but with a lifelong bond sealed by the horrors they survived together and a love that conquers all.